Hey, it's tsai here. Black art is one of the oldest principles in magic, and I personally like black art so much that I believe I have evolved the use of black art in a different direction. And here I will share with you some of my findings in applying black art a little differently than the traditional illusion. So let's get into it. First, I'd like to talk about the type of black that we can use for black art. It's very basic. At the same time, this type of information is not available elsewhere as far as I know. So this is a valuable piece of knowledge for you to take away with. The first type is the matte black art. It's basically matte black velvet with really short hair. Now, this type of black, it's short hair, it's ideal for camera, it's good for stage and parlor, but not close up. The second type is the dark black, the longer hair black velvet. Those you often see on a car mat. Now those are really dark, really friendly for live performance. However, this type of black, despite the fact that they look much darker, it's not good for camera because when you trim the black into different shaped pieces or whatnot, because of the structure of the hair, it's got fiber down on the bottom to grab onto those hair, so those fiber will reflect light. So whatever lighting condition you're under, you can always see the edge of the pieces. That makes it very difficult for you to use it on a parlor or stage situation if you have a camera pointing toward you. So the last type, the third type, is what we call the dirty black or the crushed black velvet. That type of velvet, it looks very dark, but it's got very complicated wrinkles and patterns over it. It's ideal for parlor situation because the lighting requirement is not very strict. However, it's not good for complicated black art use because the cloth will come with different patterns. If you have complicated setup, then the patterns becomes a disruption to the illusion. It's good for the situation when lighting is not under your full control. However, it's only good for simple black art use because anything complicated will disturb the pattern and destroy the illusion. Again, to recap, the matte black is camera friendly. It's less black, but it works better on camera for stage work. The long hair one, which is the dark velvet, it's good for close-up live use. It's not camera friendly, but it's good for close-up. Now the last one, the dirty black or the crushed black, it's only good for parlor and simple black art use. It's not good for complicated black art work. First, let's jump into close-up applications. Now, the application for dark black velvet and dirty black velvet, they are the same. So we're gonna use black to do the explanation because it allows us to do a little more complicated work throughout the whole project. The difference lies in the dark velvet requires a better lighting condition. You need to have control over your light. The dirty black velvet requires less lighting control, but you also don't get to do as much complicated black artwork. Now let's jump into close-up applications. The application between the dark velvet and the dirty velvet, they're absolutely the same. The difference is in the lighting requirement, and the dark velvet allows the application to be more complicated. So we're gonna use the dark velvet to explain throughout the project. Now first, when you apply black art principle in close-up situation, not a lot of people are doing this because close-up is mainly, or the mainstream type of application on close-up magic is used on stage, whether people use it for manipulation purpose or big illusions. However, black color, because it's everywhere, it's actually a very practical principle to use. When it's like the thumb tip, when people are not looking for it, they can't see it. Therefore, black art will allow a lot of visual miracles to happen right in front of your spectator's bare eyes. For example, if you actually look at your phone screen, it's black when it's not on. Everybody's phone is the same. So if you make your black art material glossy, for example, if you take a black transparency or if you put clear tape over your black art material, now you can use everybody's phone as the base of your black art to make visual magic happen. And that's very strong because it feels very casual. You can, let's say if you sit down with your friends and everybody has their phone out on the table or whatnot, you can utilize that to your advantage and make impossible magic happen with everything that's apparently borrowed or lying around you. The next category, I call it the body black because you can utilize what you're wearing. If you're wearing a black t-shirt, a black jacket, you can make a lot of things happen. Back in the day, it started from the Korean competition era. which a lot of great Korean magicians came into scene, and they started to do like really impossible manipulation technique that inspired a lot of the younger magicians to apply black. Usually they do it on social media because it's easier to get away with. However, for example, if you were to do a very impossible thing, which you cannot do it too close to people, now that becomes I guess, social media magic. However, social media magic is a real platform right now. A lot of business are happening on social media. So that's an actual solid platform, which I believe black art has a huge advantage over that kind of platform. However, if you use your body, if you create your black art gimmick, let's say goes behind your hand, so you're using your body to cover the gimmick itself and utilize black art, you can still look very free, very impossible, very clean. And with your body as a background, with your jacket, with your t-shirt, you can make impossible things happen in front of people close up, because it's like thumb tape. If they're not looking for it, they don't know what to look for. It feels bold, but it's actually very safe because it's like thumb tape. They don't know what they're looking for, and you're using your body mostly to cover the gimmick. And while you're interacting with them, there's so much information that they're digesting from what they see and what they hear. They simply can't see it. It really is something that you need to try to find out that it will work well for you. So I encourage you all to try. And here we have prepared some really simple examples for you so you can play with the ideas and try it out. Alright, let's get into stage applications. As you know, black art has a long history with stage illusions. The guy who started off, Omar Pasha, he's got an amazing act with black art back in the days, and everything was set up so precise, it was just right. And after him, not a lot of people utilize black art in that scale. Now we're gonna talk about what I consider the more modern way of using black art. I like close-up magic, and I have come up with a concept to disguise stage illusion as a close-up act. As you might have seen, I have an act that went viral on the internet with coins and flower petals. If you don't, you can Google AGT and my name. You can probably find the act on the internet. And what I think is really good about the act is it feels intimate. Although it's still a stage illusion trick, kind of, because you're very far away from your audience, but through screen and projection, people feel they are so close to you, and that's one of the new trends in magic. When you watch magic on TV, you feel so intimate just because of how close you can see the facial expression from the performer. You can feel the reaction from TV when they're reacting to the close-up magic, street magic. So technology has opened up new doors for us to perform magic differently. Now, with the setting, I'm going to briefly talk about the setting difference. Basically, when you apply black art to big illusions, basically you're creating a light zone to strengthen the contrast for people's peripheral vision. That way you can hide the stuff that you don't want people to see. At the same time, you can guide their visual attention to places that you want them to see. Now, that might be a little vague. For example, if you know double levitation, now obviously the prop is right behind the performer's back. However, through light beams and everything, the performer is lit up really well, and you see beams everywhere. Looks like the performer is in front of the beams. It's designed very cleverly to disguise the prop behind him because of the light zone that you created to gather people's visual attention. Now the same thing when you apply to, let's say, a table platform that looks like close-up magic, you are creating a light zone around the table to protect you. That way, when people look at your working area, which is a table, the entire area looks like it's under spotlight, but it's not. It's light around the working area. For obvious reason, you need yourself lit up as well. So you would have a light going toward your upper body, but not to the table. And you need two beams, one that lights you up generally, and one at a much lower angle to hit your face. So as you look down the table, you become the bounce board to reflect the light toward the table just enough so people believe that they're seeing everything so clearly. But it's the oldest principle in magic. You're creating a high contrast for people's vision to pick up the information you want them to pick up. Under this premise, here are some really cool applications and examples that we want to show you.
As I mentioned, there will be two types of black art applications that we'll be discussing in this project. The first one is close-up application, which is the one that you can do live and close up to your spectator. The other one is stage applications, which you are distant from your audience. And then by distance, I mean we can do it with people at a certain distance, maybe 5 meters away, and some maybe require more lighting assistance to make it perfect. But the stage application also opens up a lot more possibilities on how impossibilities can be presented to your audience. So we're gonna start from the easier and smaller applications to get you started, and then we'll move toward the bigger and better stuff. First, I want you to keep in mind that when we say the word black art, please do not restrict yourself from going beyond black art itself. Now, black art is one of the oldest principles in magic. Basically, black art is a principle that uses the blind spot of people to trick their own mind. And much like thumb tip, because your spectator would not be looking for the stuff that he think he'll be looking. So that's how he tricked himself into not seeing the stuff that we don't want them to see. A quick example would be if you were to vanish a cigarette with thumb tip, then the only reason why people don't see it. Now, that's also the reason why a lot of magicians are very nervous about using thumb tip, is because for obvious reason, if your thumb tip is not custom made to your finger, it will never look exactly like your finger in color, in size, in shape, and anything. And a lot of magicians, when they first start up, they are very nervous of, oh, what if people see my thumb tip? However, the whole idea of using a thumb tip is because people are looking for that white color of cigarette, the shape, they have certain impression of the object they're looking for. For example, whether if it's a red silk or if it's a white cigarette, they're looking for that specific object. That's why when you do your move, their peripheral vision, even if they see the thumb tip on your hand, they wouldn't recognize it because it's not the item that they're searching for. And black art is much like it in the close-up application. Now, when I say close-up, please do not limit yourself on black itself. Black art is everywhere. Now, first we talk about black. If you actually look around your surroundings, you'll find a lot of black colors. The reason why black art principle is black art is because it uses black, and black is the easiest color to hide the stuff that the imperfection of things. If you look around, our cell phone screen is black, laptop pouch is black, the pants you're wearing is black, wallet is black. There's tons of black around, and the whole idea is how do we utilize all those black color to do tricks in front of people close up. Now, having said that, black art can also be white black art. It's white art. Basically, we're looking for the same color or the same pattern to disguise things. For example, if you have a very busy sweater, then if you use that, or like if you're wearing a t-shirt, if you buy 2 of them and then you chop the second one, a little bit of it off to stick on a object, a flat object or whatnot. Now you have pattern art. So do not limit yourself to just black color. White will work. Depends on what kind of white and depends on your lighting. If you're using white, we're gonna go into that afterward, but now that we're on it, might as well talk about it. If you're using white, it's important because black, it's, if you were to stick, let's say, black velvet on a side of the coin, and then if the coin is magnetic, maybe you toss it toward your shirt, and then it vanishes. And obviously, if you do that, it's obvious. But if you combine it with a little bit of sleight of hand, apparently you're passing the coin from one hand to the other, and then you ditch it, but using your background t-shirt as a ditcher. So now the coin disappears, and because people are looking for coin, the silver, the reflection, the size. So when you do that, and even though it's quite obvious if you know what you're looking for, the same thing will apply to magicians. It's quite obvious if you know about thumb tip and you're looking at other performers using thumb tip, you're like, oh my God, is that what people are seeing? And the answer is no, that's not what people are seeing. People can't see it because that's not what they're looking for in their head. Now it's really, really important to remember this. So when you use let's say the coin application, now the coin would disappear because they don't know where to look, and then it's just black on you. However, if you were to use white, this idea would not apply the same way that it would with black, because black absorbs light. So when you have a, let's say a tiny piece of black on your black t-shirt, people can't see it because they're not really looking for it, and then it blends together with the shadow. However, if you use white, white is a very specific color which if you have two white layers together, you're gonna see a very clear scene on the side. So to recap, black is a very friendly color to hide the edge of your black art object, and white art is very friendly to hide the space, but you need to cover the edge entirely to make it the most effective that it can be. And pattern art, it's very much like black art, which I highly recommend you to experiment. You're gonna have a lot of fun with it. So to start, we're gonna talk about how to utilize these principles in close-up situation. And first, we're gonna talk about vertical black. That is to hide your black art principle ideas on what you're wearing, the black shirt. And let's get into it. And as you know, with some contract conditions, I cannot be exposing or teaching tricks in this project. That's why we have our amazing Sense Minds team, and Jason helped demonstrate the effect to you. And I'm just going to be talking about how and why each effect is how it is, to help you understand the principle and then further turning it into different applications for yourself. Now, the first application is the invisible pen. Like I said, this principle is actually very friendly for white art as well, because when you're holding the ring, now you're covering the entire edge of it. However, if you were to choose to use white art, there's one thing to be looking into, that is if you're wearing a t-shirt, because t-shirts tend to have a lot of wrinkles, and then if you were to just, per se, if you're using black art, you can easily be holding anything that's made with black velvet, and then they will look great. For white, if the shade of white doesn't match, it's very obvious. So usually if I'm working with white art, say if I'm working with a t-shirt, first the t-shirt cannot be made with soft material. It has to be slightly thicker, it has to be somewhat flat, so you can tell that you can't really tell about, you know, like if you have little movements and stuff, it doesn't fold up in the way that you don't want it to. Second is I never use different type of white on white art. So that said, if I were to wear a white t-shirt and to utilize the white art principle, I would then buy the same type of t-shirt materials or whatnot, so I can chop it off, that piece, and then to stick on a playing card or whatnot to keep it the shape that I want. So the texture and the shade of white is always the same, and that's the most effective. And for white art, make sure when you're using white art, you don't, like in this case, the invisible pen, don't hold it too far away from your body. You want it to be as close as you can. However, with black, you are more friendly on it's easier. The distance is more friendly. Also keep in mind that if you're wearing entire black outfit, which works better for black art, then you have a much more, I guess, free movement. Because if you are wearing a jacket like this and then black on the inside, then if you think about the angle, now people are looking, if you are performing to more than one person, then other people are looking at your hand from different angles. They might, like from the angle they're looking at, the color might not be white. So that's something that you have to watch out for. If you're doing black art, if you're just starting to do it, make sure you're wearing all black. That's the easiest to go, and then you can practice, go from there. And even if you're wearing a black shirt or a jacket, let's say if you have, reels attached to the piece, so after the pen illusion, let go, it goes inside your shirt. It's easier to clean up. Now there are two ways you can do it. One is to just pull it into your shirt. Now if you're wearing like all black, just one single piece of t-shirt, you can use magnets. So like if you let go, it just sticks to your shirt, and then you then extend your hand and then displaying the ring and the Sharpie. That way you're taking the attention away from the gimmick. And because it's all black, and after you hand the ring out to people, after you hand the Sharpie out to people, you can simply like swipe your hand down alongside the gimmick so you can like take it away. Or if you're in a sitting situation, just as you're brushing your t-shirt in a very natural way, like you're just brushing it, then you're just lapping the piece to complete the illusion. So to recap, now we talk about the things to watch out for black art, for white art, and always wear all black if you're just starting out. Now if you are going for the advanced thing, after you get really comfortable, you start to realize what angle you can work with people. Now you know where to place the object that you're trying to hide, or the space you're trying to hide, and then a lot of amazing things can happen. Alright, and this is my very favorite close-up illusion. It's coin to jumbo coin. Despite the fact that it will look very advanced, because there are a couple moments that you are actually kind of showing all the black in front of people, which if you're just starting up, you might get nervous. However, you have to know that this is not the idea that they have in their head. So it's very invisible, and it's very sleight of hand based. Think about how people used to practice, coin routine with jumbo coin, and all the angles they have to watch out for. You have to have, the right size palm, the angles and everything. And with this routine, this black art routine, your angle is much, much more friendly, because you're doing the same sleight, very easy sleight, but because you're not looking at the color, the right color. Now, comparing to if you were to be manipulating jumbo coin, it's 100 times easier. because they don't know that what's going on. And they're having the impression that you're working with a small coin, and the moment that they see the change is the actual change of the coin. So it's very deceptive. It's very exciting when you do it, when you first start to practice. But keep in mind that, if you work with thumb tip or if you don't, think about how it would happen if you were to manipulate a jumbo coin to people. It's exactly the same thing. However, this manipulation only happens in just a few seconds. So they can, there's no way they can see anything, especially when you also have a small coin that's shining with high reflection to catch your attention, to misdirect them. And now the move, everything's just natural. This is a routine that I highly recommend you to try after you get comfortable with the idea of using black art. And this will, once you master this routine, you will open up doors to many things, because now you have built the confidence, you have built the encouragement to proceed and continue with this very bold principle in magic. Now this is a very special routine to me because I'm really intrigued by the idea of negative space. So with this, like I mentioned, with white art, you gotta use the same type of material, texture, and what you're wearing has to be somewhat thick enough to keep it flat. And as you see from the explanation of how the trick happened, which I will not talk about it again, but keep in mind that when you're working with this routine, now at the end you end clean because it goes into your shirt. Now when you're poking the Sharpie down, basically because I didn't want to have my fingers closed entirely. So by holding the cap of the Sharpie, which is a normal thing when you have a Sharpie in your hand, now it looks like it's not closed, but it's actually a closed, like a closed circle that disguises the entire edge of the gimmick piece. So I'm also disguising the movement of how it goes away because the edge of the white you will always see. So when I'm recapping the Sharpie, as the movement is happening, the piece goes in, and that's the perfect disguise. When you're executing the trick, make sure your Sharpie doesn't go behind your middle finger because you're then covering the tip of the Sharpie. It doesn't look as good. So now clearly you can see the the part that you're holding the Sharpie with, and you're seeing the tip of the Sharpie, and then you're seeing how the Sharpie vanish in between the space of your hand. And then as you're putting it, recapping it. And this is one of those effects that, nobody can explain what it is, but people are impressed by the stuff that they don't understand. So it's very hard for me to explain it. You have to perform it and then judge for yourself based on people's reaction. Go try it. Alright, now this is a very special trick, card to anything, because it's so practical. That's why I included it in this project. It's highly recommended that you actually work with this using playing card in this case, because as magicians, that's close-up wise, I'm assuming that you will at some point perform a card effect in your routine. And this is perfect because now it becomes a perfect bridge to your next effect. It can be a card to a jumbo coin, it can be a card to a bunch of coins, say $50 Bitcoins from cents lines that you can work with. It's a perfect transition. It can be like, it just go from card to anything. And that gives you the freedom of, a lot of times we do magic effects. We go from one effect to another. Here's a card trick. Thank you very much. By the way, here I have some $50. You want to see a coin trick? Oh, by the way, here I have a piece of rope. I never liked the idea of displaying prop segment by segment because it feels like a salesman trying to sell you something. If I'm behind the counter, here's my product number 1, here's my product number 2. I never liked that. I think the flow of your routine is equally important as the effect itself. So the bridge is like if I'm working on a show, if I'm working on a set, the bridge is what I'm working on the most because how I go from one effect to another, whether if it's going from with an entertaining angle or using an effect to bridge them, I think those are the stuff that makes a good show, not the effect itself, because it's given that we provide quality routines as a professional magician. But what happens in between are what determines the good ones and the great ones. So think about it, work with it, and then try for yourself. Now this section is a unique section. We just talked about how to use vertical disguise for black art, and now we're going to talk about how to disguise black art principles in objects. Now this section is just some examples for you to start kicking the ideas around. And we're going to use wallet, we're going to use cell phones, but keep in mind that you are not limited by these objects. These are merely just ideas for you as an example, so you know you're not restricted in any way. If you look around, laptop screens, laptop bags, somebody else's leather jacket, you know, anything can be black art as long as you know, you study and understand the property of it. For example, if you're looking at a computer screen, obviously it's glossy, but it's still black. If you're looking at a leather jacket, if you were to use a black velvet, it will not work with it. But if you were to, if you were to wear a black jacket on your own, then you are, more than free to, I don't want to say gaff your jacket, but create gaff that work with your jacket. But then if you're wearing black leather jacket for yourself, then you're free to either gaff your jacket, or you can create, individual parts or gaffs that work with your jacket. So keep your eye out, look around, and then once you start looking around, you will realize how much black things there are and how much freedom you have. Keep your creative juice going and find the right element. Experiment with everything that you can. That's how you start. And keep on experiment with everything that you can. That's how you get really good with something. So now we have 2 routines using as a starter examples for you to start playing around and then experiment with this specific principle. Now this is a very weird effect, because what it is how you can fold origami in a very magical and speedy manner. It doesn't mean anything, but this is a great example of how you're showing pure visual to impress people, and then what you're working with, it's just your wallet. There are black velvet wallet out there, or there are leather wallet. Both will work, and then I'm going to tell you the difference so you can choose what kind of options you're going with. Now, this is also the same principle that we use for one of our Got Change project by our amazing Jason Yu. So you gotta check it out if you like this type of stuff. Now, some people are worried about if they use leather because of how it folds, and leather, the edge, it's more, I don't want to say it's more obvious, but it's not as invisible as if you were to use black velvet, because velvets are furry, so the fur aspect of it will disguise the edge a little bit better. However, keep in mind that it's like, I keep on using thumb tip as an example, but really, for the lack of better terms, it is the principle that really work for, think about how long thumb tip has been around us. So it's a psychology that works behind the principles, not so much on the prop. The same thing apply when the bill folds and becomes something else, because visually your visual shrinks. It brings your focus down to this object in the center of what you can see. So as long as that happens, and our mind works like a RAM, like computer. Our mind can only process things so fast. So while your mind is adjusting and thinking, digesting, put it that way, digesting the information of how, well, that just happened. And when that moment happens, it's a timing thing. You pick it up, give it to them, and that's how their attention will follow. And by receiving your object onto their hand, people can only remember 3 things at the same time. So if you feed them 3 pieces of information, on the 4th, they forget the first. That's usually how people's mind work. And I know it's very hard to believe, but if you actually try to, a lot of the mentalism technique, or a lot of the psychological technique, put it that way, works the same way. This is a very basic principle of how people's mind work. So taking this principle a step further and applying them on visual tricks like this. Now, when the trick happens, some people might think it's obvious, but if you have a good flow, then you're always catching it on and feeding new information to your spectator. This is how you get away with it. Now, to get away with it safer, you want to keep those uncertain factors out. So you don't have to worry so much about the timing, that is to use maybe black velvet wallet. Some people, or in this case, because I couldn't find the type of black velvet wallet that I like, the style, so I actually made my own. The cheap way to do it is you can have black velvet tape or black velvet material, just tape around your wallet to make the outside of your wallet black. I brought it to a craftsman, and then he made a black velvet wallet for me that looked amazing. There's a gazillion different styles of wallets, so when they exist, it makes sense. Some magicians are like, oh, I've never used those wallets. But at the same time, have you used all the wallets? People don't care what wallets you use, and as long as I showcase the effect, and then the attention should be on the object and not my wallet. And that's a really important thing that I encourage people to keep in mind. And the whole thing about this example, using our favorite trick to demonstrate, is not to steal the idea of, maybe you're gonna try a velvet wallet or whatnot. That is to provide you with an example, to look for the object that you can work with. In this case, wallet for me, at least, is very convenient because it goes in and out of my pocket. It's my own object, and because of the nature, a wallet, it's a very private thing. It's not something that people can, just be grabby and take it away. It's not something that if people are polite or if people are, it's not something that, people feel comfortable just taking it, or if people expect you to give it to them. So that's why, when things happen, their focus is here. It's only natural that I put it away. And that's why I chose wallet to work with. And this is another great example because cell phone, it's everywhere. Everybody's got a phone. And whether if it's your phone and somebody else's, they always look the same. The previous example is a wallet, but using a black velvet wallet or using a specific type of leather wallet, it's usually, it's your object because it's your item. You can prepare. It's always on you. It's an example of using your personal item but ordinary item to demonstrate your magic power. And in this case, with a phone, you can use literally anyone's phone. So again, the principle is already taught in the segment, so I'm not going to go into it again. But this is a great example of when you look around, looking for what everybody uses, you will be able to find these elements to work with, so you can make a universal gimmick and work with everybody's object that you can borrow from. That's how you create impromptu miracles. Now here we are at the stage application. Now, like I said, stage application is my favorite. And I've introduced you 3 types of black that we use. The one that I'm gonna use to demonstrate all the effect, all the inventions is the flat black that I use personally. And the reason why is because I use a lot of animations in black. Now, as brought up before, dirty black is great. The brighter it is, the harder to see. But it's not as friendly and it's very limiting to animate your black art. And the reason why I love stage applications so much is because stage magic for a long time, that per se, if you work with manipulation, if you work with stuff without the projection, you can only showcase, doesn't matter how big your prop is, 500,000 people, and then it starts to lose its power, because the further it is, the smaller your magic is. Now with the help of technology, anything that you do small can look so grand to people, and that opens up a lot of possibilities in the first place. However, with the principles that I don't want to say I invented, but to my understanding, I was the first person to ever try using animated black art principles through technology, through cameras, and projected to live audience. So I'm very proud of the trial. That went kind of a work for me. And there are examples I really want to show you using all the flat black technologies, techniques, systems that I have invented for myself. Now I'm going to show you how to automate some of the movement. I'm going to show you some of the possibilities that you can do with maybe restoration, levitation, and transportation for sure. So all these techniques combined, you can make some amazing, amazing magic happen for yourself. Now let's take a look. Now to talk about stage application, it's important to work with the light. So the very first section, I'm going to talk briefly about the lighting that you can work with. Now, a lot of the situation that I work with, sometimes I work in dark theaters, so it's maybe only 3,000–5,000 people, and sometimes I work in stadium with maybe 50,000 people, and the lightings are completely different. I'm going to show you examples in later sections, but for theaters, it's important, like for my technique that I use for my rose act, it's important to know the lighting, because it's like double levitate the light. It's like the lighting for double levitation. Now the whole concept of this condensed act, including rose act, is where it all begins, and all the examples that I show you today is based on the same principle that I'm working with a table frame, sort of, and then the cameras can take from 45, so it doesn't block me, or a crane, so the audience can see me live doing my stuff. And because the things are so visual, and even if they can't see all the details, they will still see the visual, like moving and all those impossibilities. They know it's live because they're there. And then looking on the big screen, they'll be able to see the details. They'll be like, oh my God, it's really happening right there, right then. So there's a lot of psychological layers in this type of act with technology. And now to work with the light, let me first briefly introduce you what the concept is. The concept is to disguise a grand illusion as a close-up trick. So the whole rose act, or the whole stage application sections, despite the fact that it looked very, I would say, medium size or small size, honestly, it's actually, the concept behind it is, it's actually the whole setup of a grand illusion, condensing it down to a close-up act. So people believe it's something that's so handy, very, it's all your technique and very small, very intimate, put it that way. But it's not. It's an effort of teamwork. It requires the assistance from the light crew. It requires your sound crew to work together and everything else. So having that mindset, you expect that much work to go into it. Now, if you're willing to put in the work, you can make some really amazing things happen. For the basic setup, now for my rose act, or for this type of act, it's important to realize that you need to be protected by light. Now, light is your friend. First, you need to have spotlights around the table, not on the table, but around the table, like double levitation. So when you're hiding black, the idea was not to avoid light, but to create more light around the black, so the black looks a lot darker than it is. And your camera person, or your camera, if it's on a crane or whatnot, it should be outside of the light zone. Now, we're not talking about smoke and stuff. You don't need all that. However, you could. It will help to build the atmosphere. It will help to make the light, the shield, thicker, but you don't need it. Once you have the light zone created, then that's gonna automatically create bigger contrast on your camera. And if you have a camera person, he can also work with the ISO to make everything look better. If you're practicing at home using your cell phone, simply tap on the white and to adjust the white balance until you don't see any of the gimmick on the table. And that's the stuff that you will be projecting on your LED panel or your projection screen. So once you have those lights created, you'll realize, the first thing you'll realize is you are very dark. Now, it's important that you put a small light directly to your face and from the two sides, to fill up the light from two sides also, so it doesn't feel like you're from a different zone because everything else is so bright. Now, for this illusion to work best, it's best to have the environment bright, kind of, so it's not like very, very dark. And then for the reason why I work with sometimes coins and cards, and if you're working with cards, some people, they like to work with matte cards. Don't do that. You work with glossy cards. The reason why is the light on your face will bounce off to your items. So you're using your face as the bounce board for light. So when light hit your face and as you look down, it's just enough light using your face as a bounce board to go on the table. So now the table, it's also apparently very bright because your object is very clear. And then the light zone around the table is going to make the black part very dark. And it's important that your camera does not enter the light zone. So if you create a wall of light around the table, your camera should always be outside of the light zone by zooming in. If your camera is in the light zone, the white balance will mess up. So that's a basic setup of light. I'm gonna take you backstage in case you're working in a arena like I am. Apart from theater setting, the arena works completely different because of how the space is open. Usually the lights is everywhere and you have people sitting at extreme angle. So let's take a look. Hey, it's Will here to show you some of the black art technique applied on stage, the lighting technique, real life. So here's my stage. We're at Shanghai Mercedes-Benz Arena. Here we go, very quickly. So if you are working on a stage like this, take a look up. There's a gazillion things on the rooftop, right? So there are a few things to consider. First, you need to know exactly how you want to present your magic. You need to create the light wall to protect yourself. And to make that happen, sometimes you're not always in the center spot because there are gazillion things, and you're working with the trapdoors, you're working with the light equipment, you're working with the angles. And then if you look at the arena, your angles are quite tight because the audience goes all the way back. So there are still people going to see your magic live. How are you going to arrange the light is crucial. So the people live, even they're so close to you, like my position on stage will be so close to my audience, and half of my, I don't want to say half, but a good number of audience are going to watch my magic real live from behind my back, 45 up, and watch me down. So the wall that I'm creating is no longer just this anymore. I have to, expand. So there's no set rules to create. There's no set rule for lighting, but it's always very situational. You need to understand the principle of what needs to be done, and then you need to be flexible to work with not just the stage, but your material has to be flexible. Sometimes particular things needs to be taken out. Sometimes you can leave them in or expand on it. So that's some of the advice for lighting.
Hey, now we have shared with you what we have prepared for you in regard of the application of black art. We've gone through what material to go for under different conditions, as well as close-up and stage applications. The reason why we created this project is because we believe there are no correct way of doing things, and letting our creative thought run wild and applying old principle with new ideas, we can create new magic. I've received a lot of emails and messages about how to create new magic or how to utilize black art in a different way. So I just wanted to share the idea of, although the ideas could be old, the principle could be old, by applying it differently, we can bring new blood, we can give it new life to the older magic that maybe not a lot of people are doing. One thing I wanted to address more is when you are applying black art in close-up condition, you want to always work with shadow. Shadow is your best friend. It's like IT. You're trying to block the light source so people don't see the edge of whatever shape of gimmick you're working with. As you see, black art has so much potential. It's like the invisible man principle. When you are in the dark area with black outfit on stage, people don't see you at all. Imagine that on everything that you do. Gimmick, mechanism, ways to make things happen. It's completely invisible to people. You can make whatever happen. Shadow can only be formed with light. So light is your friend, shadow is your friend. Keep that in mind and you can create lots of wonderful, impossible miracles with the use of black art. You're only limited by your own imagination, and I look forward to seeing what you can come up with. Let's stay in touch. It's Will here. I'll see you next time.